Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's continue implementing the main section of our application. Now we have to implement the layout. If you do remember, we have done this particular approach in the Jetpack Compose application. We're going to do the same thing basically and place the header section as well as the main variable section of our app and the footer. Let's go ahead and create a brand new view for this. It's gonna be a little bit complicated, but we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we have done earlier under Jetpack Compose application. We need the auth state and we need the auth event. We need the binding of login form state as well as the login event. And because we are going to deal with theme to switch back and forth from light theme and dark theme, we need a binding for pocket goods app state, and we need the event to interact with the event to change the theme back and forth. With the same manner, we need the register form state as well as the dedicated events for this form state. And because we're going to place the header under this particular layout, we need the states of products and its related events. And if you do remember, under the login form, we need the pass-through subjects of type user and never in order to handle the one-time event. And we need another binding basically for the search query. If we ever need other dependencies, we're going to add them accordingly. We need to place the header section. I'm just going to mark it with to do. And the main variable section, the navigation stack and footer. All right, let's leave it empty for now. And let's go ahead and implement the header section. Under main, create a new folder. Let's call it component. Inside this particular section, we're going to do here header. On logo click, we're going to navigate basically to the home screen. Therefore, we need to inject the view model of type router. Environment objects, router. Here we have to do router and navigate the destination. It is home screen. On navigate, let's add here destination. And because it's nullable, we have to do if let destination. We have to call here the event pocket goods app event. On set current destination, and you have to set the destination here as an argument. I would like to hoist this type in text. I'm gonna add it here. And type in text, it is type in text. Now for the search input as well as the toolbar, we have done the search input under the products feature. We need a binding for the query as well as the search label. Let's create the binding first. Let's define here the search label, which is search from local and search and localized. And for the bundle, basically it is Core UI bundle. Whenever we click on the magnify icon, we have to navigate to the search results screen. Therefore, we have to use router, this destination, which is basically product search results screen. On pocket good events, set current destination, destination. Now on clear query, what we have to do, we need to clear the search input and we need the access to the product events. Let's add the product event up here. All right, let's come back and call the event on product event clear search. On suggested products click, we have to navigate to the product detail screen. All right, now for the suggested products under the state of product state. Therefore, we have to access here the product state. Go into the space between those. All right, now what we have to do is very simple. State or product state and suggested products. Now for the toolbar, we have to use the toolbar component and it has a lot of dependencies. Now we have to set here is dark theme, which is a binding. And we need the auth state. Let's prepare the needed states. We need the binding for dark theme. We need an auth state from type, login state, which is a binding, and the pass-through, the login form events, register. I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna prepare those up here. Auth state and auth event, the binding for login form state as well as on login event. The same for register, the pass-through for the one-time events. We need another state for form type to toggle the form back and forth, and we need a binding for dark theme. I'm gonna move this up here. For this is dark theme, going to add here is dark theme from the binding. On auth state, it has to be auth state. Form type, which is $sign. Even if it's a state, we can add $sign and to do here the form type to create the binding. And basically for the login state, which is a binding, login form state, the pass through subject. I'm going to hoist this method, login form events. Likewise for register. Now for the onLogout, what we have to do here, we need to check if we have an authenticated user. We can access the authenticated user from the auth state. And because it's nullable, we have to do here authenticated user. We need to call the event onLogout from the auth event. Let's pass the user ID, which should be handled under onLogout. And whenever we have an error. For this particular section, we need to pass null as the authenticated user inside the auth state by doing onAuth event and set authenticated user, and it should be null. Next, we need to show the snackbar message that the user has been successfully logged out. Therefore, we have to inject snackbar controller of type snackbar controller. And we can do snackbar controller and show message. For the message, we can access the message from local keys, logged out, and localized. And for the bundle, it has to be core UI. Let's set the severity to success. And if we have an error, going to show another snackbar of type error. And instead, it should be logout error. Now, whenever the user has successfully logged in, what we have to do, let's add here the user. First of all, we have to initialize the alert message by doing on login events and set alerts, empty message, and for the visibility false. Next, we need to dismiss or to close the modal, and we have to inject the viewModal. Environment objects, private var, which is modal controller. Next, we have to dismiss the modal. Afterward, we have to show the snackbar message telling the user that's successfully authenticated. Let's add here the argument for the user name, and we are good to go. All we are doing right now is fill in the blanks. On user menu click, whenever the user click on the user menu, you have to refresh basically the data. Therefore, we have to call the event on refresh user data. From the on auth events, refresh data. If we have a problem, I'm going to show the snackbar message telling the user there is a problem refreshing the data. Whenever the user clicks on the menu item wishlist manager screen, we need first of all to check if the user is authenticated, navigate to the wishlist manager screen, and we have to set the current destination to this particular destination. If the user is not authenticated and somehow able to access or to click on this particular menu item, we have to navigate to the unauthorized screen. Now on dark theme switched, we have to trigger the event onSet dark theme from the main events Pocket Goods app events. OnSet dark theme, and we have to pass here the dark theme as an argument. I'm gonna add here a small padding for this particular user or toolbar. Now we are not basically done yet. Under the header section, or more specifically the user input, I would like to add here the text field width according to the screen size. I'm going to wrap everything within a geometry reader. Let's close this section. Now here I'm gonna do text field width. It is basically reader size width. I'm going to take 45%. And for the autocomplete width, I'm gonna take this, and let's take, for example, 55%. And for the autocomplete height, let's take 50%. I think that we are done implementing the header section. Let's prepare a preview for this. As usual, let's call it header section preview by providing some states for the auth state, product state, and the pocket goods state, and all the needed states for search query, login form state, as well as register state. Next, we need the state objects for router and the snackbar controller and modal controller. For the presentation of this particular preview, I'm gonna wrap everything with a scroll view and vstack. Let's add here the header section, and let's provide the auth state. On auth events, for the first event, refresh data and copy, more specifically, the authenticated user from the mock data. The other event, set authenticated user. In this case, I'm going to copy this, and instead should be some, which is optional, user. The other one, on logout, going to set auth state and copy, and have to pass here null. I'm gonna fold this section, product state. On product event, whenever we clear the search, we're going to assign suggested products to empty array. To get the product, we have to set, first of all, the page loading to true. And after 2 seconds, for example, we're going to set the products from the mock data and set is page loading to false. For the other event on next page, we're going to set the current page to 2. This particular event is not going to be reflected in our data because we don't have any other page to deal with in the mock data. Now for the event load product, we're going to set, first of all, is page loading to true. And after 2 seconds, we're going to assign the product detail from the mock data. And we have to set page loading to false. On search suggestions, we have to set a searching to true. And after 500 milliseconds, we're going to assign the new suggestions from the mock data by calling suggested products and set the product state. More specifically, is searching to false and assign the new suggested products. Actually, I'm going to delete this because we're not interested in this particular event. Default, let's add here break. Let's implement the other events on pocket goods app event. For the first event, which is onSet dark theme, basically we're going to assign dark theme from the parameter onSet dark theme. For the other cases, we're not interested in implementing the other cases. Next, we need to assign the login form state and the login event. I'm going to copy basically the same thing that we have done under the login form component, preview, and the register form preview. The only private section should be for the environment objects and for this internal state. I'm going to move this internal state underneath. With the same manner, we have to do register state, which is binding, register state, and on register events. I'm going to copy the implementation from the register preview. All right, I'm going to fold this section. Next, we need to assign the binding is dark theme. We have to construct basically this value by doing binding for the getter from pocket goods state and is dark theme, and the setter, which is pocket goods state. We have to basically update the state as follow: pocket goods state and copy. Let's add here value or new value, and is dark theme, it's gotta be value. For the search query, which is a binding, let's add here search query. And for the pass through, and for the type in text, local keys and header text, underneath I'm gonna add here a frame. For the height, let's do, for example, 400. There is an error here somewhere, I don't know what's going on. You know what, just to get rid of this, I'm gonna add a custom initializer, and everything has to be private. All right, with that out of the way, let's continue. Now remember, we are under the stack. Underneath the header section, I'm gonna put here a simple text, and let's add here a spacer and the footer. For the footer height, let's do, for example, 80. Let's fold this section, and I would like to do here ignore safe area. I'm not interested actually in the scroll view. And let's do here the background, color, theme, and background. We have to do here the modal host that we have implemented earlier. And let's add the environment objects for router, snack bar controller, and modal controller. All right, let's see how it's gonna look like. All right, let's refresh. We have a warning here, which is basically the authenticated user. All right, instead of doing if-let authenticated user, we have to do if state and authenticated user not null. And this is basically the expected layout that we are expecting. But we don't have the magnify icon for some reason. For this, it should be trailing icon instead of leading icon. Yeah, we have done this incorrectly. Anyway, let's come back to the preview header. All right. Now the header is ready to go. Let's come back to the layout. Now we have to add here the header section as well as the main section. Until here, nothing complicated. But the problem occurred when you're going to deal with nested scrolling. In my app, I want one single scroll view in this application. Therefore, if we try to do here under the navigation stack section, a scroll view, which is parent scroll view, and add another scroll view for the lazy vertical grid, it's not going to work as expected. The user is going to get confused trying to scroll inside the lazy vertical grid. Once reaching the bottom of the screen, to come back to the top of the screen, the user has to click on the outside of the area we're going to put the list of products, which is not convenient. Therefore, we have to make another component that has to be the main container of this whole section of our layout. I'm gonna call it navigation. Let's place this under a new folder, routes. Create a new view. Let's call it navigation. We don't need actually the preview. It's gonna be a wrapper around the navigation stack, and we have to pass here the path. I'm going to hoist this binding, and the type of this path is an array of data. Path. The parent section that's gonna be placed under the navigation, let's add in our section just a spacer. And you have to place here the destination. For the destination, it should be data and self. The screen or the entire application should have only one scroll view. I'm gonna add here scroll view. I will place here the header, which is a placeholder for the header. The first parameter, it should be data, first of all. That has to be hashable. And the header of type view. And I would like to place here underneath the main content of type view as well, and the footer. Let's add the needed parameters. Next, we should pass to the main content the data. In other words, we have to pass the main content the current destination. Instead of main content presented like this, it should have as a parameter data, and it should give us main content. Underneath the header, we have to do main content, passing the data from the navigation destination. And I would like here to specify the minimum height for this particular main content in order to keep always a minimum height for this section. If you don't do this, the footer is not going to be placed at the bottom of the screen. Under scroll view, things get complicated. If we placed this under vertical stack, we only have to do a spacer. But for us, this particular minimum height should be assigned to the frame of main content in order to keep things consistent across the different screens. Let's not hard code this particular value. Let's add it as a private variable. And I would like to add it here as an extension function on navigation, main content, minimum height. For the height that should be assigned to this particular value, it should be CG float. And it has to give us like a modifier, if you will. I'm gonna add here the function is going to assign this particular value. Let's call it, for example, with main content, minimum height. Let's initialize the copy of self and do copy and the main content minimum height equal height. And we have to return the copy. It's gonna basically change the data main content minimum height. And up here we have to do with main content minimum height, and we have to pass the height as an argument. This should be self instead and self instead. And the footer. The problem here is to cache basically the header and the footer. The footer is a constant section in our application, but for the header, it should be cached somehow. If you want to take this navigation component to the next level, we can make it even robust by caching the header and footer. Perhaps in another tutorial, we're going to address this issue. But for now, just keep it like this, because every time we're going to navigate basically to another screen, the header section is going to change. In other words, we're not going to be able to maintain the state under the header section. It's not going to make the application horrible, but just to keep that in mind. I'm going to hide basically the navigation bar. Let's hoist this property. I would like to assign here an accessibility identifier for testing purposes. Let's call it scrollable ID. Let's hoist this as well. And I'm going to ignore safe area, and for the background and background. Now we need to prevent the stack from being empty, because whenever we're going to click back to the previous destination, the stack is going to be empty. We need to prevent this kind of behavior. Therefore, I'm going to do here on change and the path. If the new path is empty, we're going to fill the data path with another initial value. Let's call it root. The root element is going to be the first element that should be placed under the navigation stack. In our case, the home screen. The home screen always gonna be under the data. In this case, we're not gonna end up with an empty stack under the destinations. Path equal root. So whenever we click back to the previous destination and the stack is empty, we're not going to allow this kind of behavior under the navigation components. We're always gonna end up with the home screen under the navigation stack, which is good. Here we have to assign the main content minimum height. Let's add the initializer for this navigation. Keep in mind, which is very important, under the header section, it has the search input. So whatever you put under the search input, once navigating to the other screen, the state is gonna be lost. Now we have just to use this navigation under the layout. For the path, we need to access the navigation stack from the router. Therefore, let's inject the router view model. We can do router and navigation stack. For the root, in this case, it's home screen. Let's place the header and the main content and the footer. Now for the header, we're going to use the header section. For the auth state, it is auth state. On auth event, nothing's gonna change here. I'm going to assign the type in text header text. For this header section, I would like to do here for the frame height 420, for example. Now let's move to the main content. We're going to put here the routes or different routes, home screen, product detail screen route, the same thing that we have done under Jetpack Compose application. We're going to do this later on. And for the footer, it should be footer that we have implemented before. And for the accessibility identifier, we're going to set here for this accessibility identifier for testing purposes to detect that our application is in dark theme or light theme. We're going to do here pocket goods app. If it's dark theme, going to assign UI constant parent container in dark theme. Otherwise, is in light theme. It doesn't matter where you're going to place this. Most importantly, you have to place it somewhere under the root of our app to make sure that we are under light theme or dark theme. If you remember, under the navigation, we have implemented a function that's going to set for us the main content minimum height. Just for reusability purposes, we're going to do here, and this is basically the main reason why we have implemented main content minimum height. To make it reusable, let's do as the minimum height 700 to make sure that the footer is at the bottom of our screen. Now let's define the main section of our app under main content. Let's go ahead under route and let's define a useful function. It is basically an extension function on layout that has to give us or to build for us the route. It's going to be according to the destination. Let's name it route builder. It has to be a view builder and it should give us some view. This build route should take in parameter destination to show the dedicated destination according to the destination. A simple switch on the destination. And let's add all the cases. Now we have to implement the home route, product detail route, and so on. Let's go ahead and implement those, and let's come back to this particular file to finish the implementation. And the route, create a new file from template. Let's call it home route. Just to organize things a little bit, we're going to put here the home screen under this home route. It's going to be basically a wrapper around home screen. Under this main section, I'm going to create a new file from template. It's going to be for the home screen. In the home screen, going to show the Looty animation as well as the list or the products fragment. We need product state and the product event. And let's hoist the method on view product on toggle wishlist, and we need the access of the authenticated user. Let's place everything within a V stack. For the first element, discount animation, let's make it at the center horizontally by doing hstack and spacer, another spacer, and let's place discount animation. For the frame, I'm gonna do here, for example, width 100, and for the height 100. And let's add an overall padding. Underneath, I'm going to put the text discount at the center of our screen. I'm gonna copy this from local keys, discount, localized, bundle, and it has to be core UI. Display medium, and I don't think that we have assigned a display medium. I'm going to add here another font, display medium bold. Instead of regular, it should be bold. Come back to the home screen and it should be display medium bold. All right. For the foreground color, it is on surface. Now underneath this h-stack, we have to put our product fragments. Let's provide here the product state, on product event, on view product, on toggle wishlist, and authenticated user. I'm going to add here a padding top, the background color for this whole section, background. And that's all for the home screen. Let's add a small preview for this. Let's add the states for the product state. Let's wrap everything within a scroll view and add the home screen. Here it should be product state. We're going to implement this with the same manner. For the get products, we're going to set page loading to true, same manner that we have done under the header, I think. And we have to change the data from the mock data. For those functions, we are not interested as well because nothing's going to happen under the screen. For the authenticated user, let's do, for example, the user from the mock data and to user. All right. Let's see the preview. Let's comment this for now. All right, this is the home screen. That's about it. Now under route, let's implement the home route. Basically, it's just going to be a wrapper around this home screen. With the same manner, we need the auth state, product state, and the dedicated events, and on pocket goods app events. Let's use here the home screen, product state, product events. Now on view products, we have to navigate to product detail screen. Therefore, we have to inject the router. With the same manner, we're going to navigate to product detail screen and we have to save the destination. On toggle wishlist, first of all, we need to make sure that the authenticated user is not null. If it's not null, we're going to trigger the event on toggle wishlist from pocket goods app events. The user ID from authenticated user and ID, product ID on added and on removed. Whenever we add a product to the wishlist, we have to show the snack bar message. And whenever we remove the product from the wishlist, we're going to show the snack bar message. Therefore, we have to inject the snack bar controller. In this particular case, we're going to show, for example, added to wishlist from the string resource with the same manner on removed from wishlist. And we have to pass here the authenticated user from the auth state. This is just a personal preference. I would like to keep it organized by adding the home route, and we can basically use the home route under the route builder. Let's build the next route, which is for the product detail screen. And let's use here the product detail screen. I'm going to hoist basically the state, product state, as well as the product ID. And let's handle internally the on toggle wishlist and on event should be hoisted. Product state and on event, which is product event. Let's handle this internally. With the same manner that we have done earlier under home route, we're going to proceed with the same thing. Product ID and the title. We are not interested in showing the title in the snack bar message. The user is authenticated. We need to toggle the wishlist by calling the event on toggle wishlist from pocket goods app event. I'm going to add here an initializer, inject here the snack bar controller. We're going to do the same thing that we have done under the home route, toggling the wishlist, and after adding, going to show the snack bar message. If removing, we're going to show the snack bar message. Now, if the user is not authenticated, we have to show another snack bar message telling the user you have to authenticate to proceed. And here for the authenticated user, it should be auth state and authenticated user. Let's implement the other route, product search route, and let's use the product search results screen. I'm going to hoist the product state on events, type product event, and let's handle internally the on view product as well as toggle wishlist. It's going to be the same thing that we have done under home route. We need to inject the router as well as the snack bar controller. Now let's implement this particular section internally. On view products, we have to navigate to product detail screen. On toggle wishlist, if the user is authenticated, we're going to trigger the event on toggle wishlist from Pocket Goods app events. And we have to show the snack bar message according to the states on removed or on added. And we have to assign the authenticated user. One last route to implement, which is wishlist screen route. And let's use the wishlist manager screen and let's hoist the needed states. I would like to hoist the wishlist screen state as well as its dedicated events. And let's implement internally on delete success, on delete error, and on product click. And let's provide the authenticated user. Let's prepare here the needed state that should be hoisted. I'm gonna provide here first of all the auth states and authenticated. For this should be a binding or wishlist screen state because we're going to open the modal and handle the loading indicator under the progress indicator inside the modal. Here it is on wishlist manager screen events. Let's implement this as I said before. First of all, dismiss or to close the modal and to show the snack bar telling the user that the product has been removed successfully from wishlist. Therefore, we have to inject two view models, the first one for the modal controller and the snack bar controller. And speaking of which, we need to inject another view model, which is the router, to navigate to the product detail once clicking on the products under the wishlist manager. Now, as I said before, we have to close the modal by calling dismiss and showing the snack bar message removed from wishlist. I'm gonna add here an initializer. Let's continue with the same manner. On delete error, we have to dismiss or to close the modal and show a snack bar message telling the user remove from wishlist error or an error occurred while removing the item from wishlist. On products click, we're going to navigate to product detail screen and save the current destination. And that's pretty much it for the available routes of our application. Let's handle right now the build routes. Now, in case of home screen, we should show to the user the home route. We have all the needed parameters and the dependencies here under layout. Therefore, it's going to be very easy for us to feed this home screen with the needed dependencies. Here it should be auth states, product states, on products events, and the on Pocket Goods app events. For the other case, which is product detail screen, and we have to add here the product ID to access the product ID, and we can do here the product route. Try not to get confused by adding product detail screen instead of product detail route. It should be product detail route. The other case for the product search result screen, we have basically another route. For wishlist manager screen, we have to use wishlist route or wishlist manager screen route auth state. We have to provide the binding. Let's add the binding for wishlist manager screen state under layout. And let's add the dedicated event. Let's come back to the route builder. Here it has to be a binding, therefore I have to use wishlist manager state on Pocket Goods app events on wishlist screen manager events. One last route to go, which is for the unauthorized. We need to use here the page 401 that we have implemented before. And whenever we click on this particular button, which is on back home click, we're going to navigate to home screen and to save the destination. And we have basically the instance of router, which is the view model under the layout. Keep in mind, we are under the layout, which is an extension function. That's pretty much it for the route builder. Let's use the route builder under the main section of our layout. Build routes, and let's provide the destination. And for the background of this whole section should be background. As simple as this. Let's go ahead and implement a preview for this layout. It's not going to be basically for the layout itself, but it's just going to be a mock layout. Let's use the navigation. Let's provide the needed state for the path. And beforehand, I would like to create the mock destination. And here the state according to the mock destination. Here it should be the initial route, which is home screen. For the header, I'm just going to put here a text. For the footer, let's do a text again. For the main content, let's simulate this. In case of home screen, going to navigate to a screen, let's call it products view. And for the detail, it's going to Just to simulate basically what's going to happen in the app, let's create the mock products view for this particular section. This should be private. Let's add private here. Let's use inside the lazy vertical grid. The columns, I'm going to do flexible columns. And let's add a method that's going to be triggered whenever we click on a particular item. And let's use the for each. Let's show, for example, 200 elements. We will show, for example, product and its dedicated index whenever we click on this particular item. Call the function on item click. And let's add here padding. Let's simulate here the product details screen. We will show here only the product title. Inside the main content, in case of home screen, we're going to do product view on item click. We're going to do here path and append just to navigate. Product detail screen, and we have to pass here the product title as an argument. In case of product detail screen, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to show the product view detail, and for the product title, which is the product title from the parameter, I'm going to customize here the frame, minimum height. This has to be UI screen, main, and bounds and height. All right, let's add this mock layout. This preview is optional if you are not interested in this particular section. You can skip this section. All we want to have here is just to make sure that the navigation works as expected. Let's click on product 0 and you should navigate to the product 0, which is what we want. We have the header and we have the footer, nothing substantial. This is basically just to make sure that the navigation works as expected. Let's not forget about the accessibility identifier for the scrollable container, which is very important. If we don't do this, our end-to-end test is not going to work when we are going to look for this particular scrollable container to perform scroll to the particular item. I think that's pretty much it for the layout section. Now we have to use the layout section under the Pocket Goods application, which is the main app. First things first, we need to provide the needed view models: the products view model, auth view model, wishlist view model, main view model, the router, and the snack bar controller. Next, we need to provide the router as well as the snack bar controller and the modal controller. Now we have to register first of all the fonts that we have done earlier. Therefore, under the init, we need to call lato font and register fonts. Next, I would like just to add the appearance for the foreground color of large title text attribute to on primary by doing UI navigation bar and appearance, large title text attribute, foreground color, UI color, theme, and on primary. Same for title text attributes. And for the tint color, it should be primary. And for the navigation bar, it should be translucent. And I would like to add for the table view, background color, clear or transparent. In this particular section, we have to install all the dependencies. Under main, I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call it DI. I would like to specify here two dependencies for the normal environment and for the testing environment. Let's create a class and call it app dependencies or app dependency. Let's make it singleton by doing public let static shared and app dependency. And we need to use the wraps value that we have done earlier in testing environment. And the constructor of this should be private. We have to install the dependencies or to register all dependencies by calling core app data module install and authentication feature domain module install and so on. Let's call this function install dependencies. Now, if we are under a testing environment, we have to install the testing environment for testing. This is going to be useful under our end-to-end test. Otherwise, we're going to do here core app module and install to register all the dependencies and so on. Now let's try to provide the testing dependencies under testing environment. I'm going to create here another structure. Let's call it app test module, private initializer for this. As usual, we have to add the static function install to install all dependencies or to register all the dependencies. What we have to provide here, API service or the mock API service, the memory database, the mock crypto service, and the other implementations and use cases related to each feature. After providing the mock dependencies for testing, we need to register those dependencies under our testing environments by using app container, shared, and register all the needed dependencies. Come back to app dependency. When we are under testing environments, we have to install the app test module, the needed dependencies for testing environments. Let's come back to the Pocket Codes app. Underneath, we're going to register all dependencies by doing app dependency and shared and install dependencies. After installing all dependencies, we can construct basically the view models, product view model, auth view model by providing the needed dependencies. We have implemented a wrapped value for this. We can do here inject var product use cases of type product use cases. Likewise for wishlist use cases, auth use cases, and settings use cases. Next, we can construct the state object. For example, product view model. It has to be state object. And let's provide the wrapped value, which is basically product view model. And we have to provide here the use cases related to product view model. It is product use cases. Likewise for other state objects, wishlist, and auth view model. Now for the main view model, with the same manner, which is of type main view model, we have to provide the other use cases. Now we have all the needed view models ready to go. Now let's add the layout under window group. If you do remember, we have implemented the splash screen. And as I said before, the main reason why I have added another screen for or mimicking the appearance of this splash screen storyboard under splash screen is to keep this splash screen visible until we are done loading basically the data of the user. I'm gonna wrap everything within a Z stack. Before moving forward, we have to inject first of all, or to provide the environment objects. Now we have to check if we are done loading the data by checking the splash screen visible. If it should be visible, we have to show here the splash screen. Let's do here the transition. Let's do, for example, leading. Otherwise, we have to use here the layouts. For the auth states, auth view model and auth states, on auth events, auth view model and auth events, and so on for the rest. Let's add an initializer for this layout. Let's come back right now to the Pocket Codes app. We have just filled basically the needed dependencies from the different view models. Just keep in mind, if you have to provide a binding, you have to add a $sign before using main view model or state, or for example, under the search query, you have just to add here $sign and add product view model and search query. Because this layout is parent view of our application, we can safely add here the snack bar host. For the data of the snack bar host, it should be a binding from snack bar controller and data. Corner radius medium. For the font, body medium. And on close, I'm gonna do here snack bar controller and dismiss the snack bar. Let's add the modal host, and we have to change the current destination to handle whenever the user is gonna close the application and reopen the application. We're going to navigate to the latest destination. On appear, whenever this component is ready, let's store the destination from main view model and state and latest destination. Now we have to check if we are under a private destination and the authenticated user is null. In this particular case, we have to navigate the user to unauthorized screen. This guard is very important, as I said before. If the user was under basically the wishlist manager screen, which is a private screen, and the user has closed the app and the token is invalid. Therefore, the user or authenticated user is going to be null in this case. We have to navigate to the unauthorized screen. Otherwise, we're going to navigate to the destination. This is very clean in my opinion. Now we have to observe the changes of the current destination. This is the new value. You can call it, if you want, new destination. We need to check that the user is still authenticated whenever this destination changes. We're not going to check if the user is still authenticated under a public route. We need to check if the destination is private. If the destination is private, we need to check that the user is still authenticated. Otherwise, if the destination is public, we don't have to do so. If destination is a private destination, we're going to call or to trigger the event from the main view model, which is auth check. If it is unauthenticated, we have to trigger first of all the event, set authenticated user to null. Next, we're going to navigate to the screen unauthorized. Now we need to set the preferred color scheme to handle the dark theme by doing here preferred color scheme, and should be according to the main view model. State is dark theme. If it's a dark theme, I'm going to do here dark. Otherwise, we have to do here light. Right now we are under the Z stack. If this Z stack is ready, we have to call here the function onAppear. We need to trigger the event onLoad data from main view model by doing main view model onEvent load data. Let's add here onSuccess and onError. In this case, we're going to set the authenticated user to this particular user from onSuccess. On onEvent, set authenticated user, user. If you have an error, you have to trigger the same event from onViewModel. In this case, it should be null. And that's all for the application Pocket Goods app. And in the next video, we're going to do the end-to-end test. For the first section, we're going to do the integration test for the main view model. And we have to implement the robot to proceed with robot pattern. And we're going to do the test cases and scenarios that we have done basically on the Jetpack Compose application. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one and happy coding.